and if the army is weakened by this point, and the Foederati are going to be the main army of Rome, then the Foederati are going to be having a big saying on who is going to become an emperor. And this is really funny because think about it, all these foreigners are going to be the ones choosing who is going to be an emperor, and Ataulf is going to be playing precisely that role. He's going to be supporting some emperors that are going to be trying to diminish the power of the actual emperor. For example, by this point the emperor is called Honorus, and you may remember it because it sounds like honor, right? Honorus. He should have been really honorable. He wasn't, but it sounds like it. So he's going to be supporting many enemies of Honorus in order to gain power himself. But he's going to be defeated by Honorus, by his generals, by the actual Roman army, and he's going to flee. But actually, when Alaric sacked Rome, when Alaric, in this point, the blue arrows, sorry, when Alaric sacked Rome, he stole the sister of the emperor. He stole the sister of Honorus. And remember that this isn't new for Romans. Do you remember that actually Rome started when the Latins stole the Sabine women? Well, Alaric did more or less the same thing. He stole the sister of Honorus, and actually Ataulf married the sister of Honorus. So, he was considered into the service of the of the emperor for a time. But as I was telling you, he was working as a puppet master over here. He was really clever. So he was really choosing who was he backing and who was he withdrawing his support of. And he is really playing a very important part in politics of the empire by this time. But finally, Honorus decides that he doesn't want him anymore because he is causing a lot of troubles, and he's going to be defeated and he's going to flee. So after Ataulf, it comes Valia, and Valia is going to be the next successor. And as you can see here, if Alaric is going to try to go down to the south of Italy, and Ataulf is going to go back into the north part of the empire, into Gaul, actually Valia is going to come towards Spain. Remember that Spain is this territory over here that by that time was called Hispania. So Valia is going to return to this point, and he's going to be in the service of the emperor. They are going to rewrite a new foedus. They are going to rewrite a new contract in which they are going to be allowed to return into the service of the emperor, and they are going to be legally in the empire's territory, but in exchange of something, because there is a problem. As I was telling you, Rome is really weak by this point. The Western Empire is really weak. So what happened over here is that several tribes coming again from Germany, all these territories over here, all these territories that now appear in the screen are going to be the origin of most of these peoples that are going to be advancing towards Rome. So as Rome is really weakened by this point, several tribes come from here and are going to be crossing this Gaul territory, what now is France and through Germany and what now is France, and they are going to be reaching Spain, Hispania, and they are going to settle there. So that is a problem because they are basically invading the empire, and the empire is going to be losing this territory in the hands of these tribes. So what are these tribes? Well, the Alans, the Vandals, the Suevians. And so what is going to happen is that the empire is going to offer a new foedus. They are going to offer a new contract in exchange for military services. They are going to be giving them this land over here. And what the Visigoths are going to be doing, and what Valia is going to be doing after his ancestor, or well, he wasn't so far in time, but after his the previous leader of the Visigoths, after he sacked Rome, Valia is going to be working for Rome again, and he's going to be fighting these peoples and trying to recover Hispania for the Romans. But there is a problem over here, because if you can see here, the Vandals are settled in this region that has this pass here that is usually called the Hercules columns, because they are the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea, and they are really close together, so they are usually called as the Hercules columns. And they are going to use boats to cross towards Africa. This part over here that you can see in the lower part of the screen, all of this is Africa. And the Vandals are going to flee from the attack of the Visigoths of Balia, and they are going to go towards Africa. So Balia actually does recover this territory for Rome, and they are going to be, obviously in this case they are going to be compensated for their efforts, because the last time that Rome did not compensate the Visigoths for their efforts, well, you remember that was when the problems started, and that was when Alaric decided to invade Rome. So here we have a problem, because as you can see here, all this kind of pink, kind of purple part is going to be the Roman Empire, right? And as you can see here, this part over here of Africa, this part over here is going to be a part of Africa. Sorry, a part of the Roman Empire in Africa. And as the Vandals are fleeing towards Africa, well, then they are still invading Roman territory. But there is going to be bigger problems for the Romans, because as you can see here, and as I was telling you, you actually have this picture of Attila in your book in page 331. And I do not quite agree on what your book says there, but if you want to read it, it is really fine, because it is actually talking about this period in time in which Rome is going to end. But well, just in a few minutes I will tell you why I actually do not agree with what your book says over there. So over here you can see that Attila and his empire of the Huns is going to be quite big. And remember that they were a tribal confederacy, so they were made up from all these different peoples. And remember that the first time that we heard from them, they are going to be attacking this part of Minor Asia. Remember, over here we have Constantinople. So first of all, the Eastern Empire is going to be fighting them. But as this empire is really big, then they are also going to be having issues and also going to be having battles with the Western Empire. So the one that is going to be in charge of defeating Attila, and actually he was successful in doing so, was the successor of Balia. And the successor of Balia is called Theodoric. And Theodoric is going to be working as the army of the Romans to fight Attila. And he actually is able to defeat Attila in this very famous battle that I am pointing out over here, that is called the Battle of the Catalonian Plains. And in the Battle of the Catalonian Plains, this Visigoth, the Visigoths that just some years before were sacking Rome, well, they are going to be actually saving Rome from the advance of Attila, the great savage. Remember that the legend says that wherever the horse of Attila would step, then no grass and no plant would ever grow again, because he was that bad in the eyes of the Romans. He was the punishment of God, according to certain names. So after Theodoric dies, then Theodoric, well, I am not including the names of every single king of the Visigoths, because some of them only reigned from a few days, or perhaps for 2 years, and didn't happen anything really important there. And they had this really bad custom in which they would kill their brothers in order to become kings. So many of them didn't live long. So I am not including everyone. There are a couple of kings between Theodoric and Theodoric II. So Theodoric II, as Balia is going to be saving all this territory of Spain, and is going to be kind of returning it to Rome. They are going to be spreading throughout, the Visigoths are going to be spreading throughout the territory of Hispania. And actually they had gained a lot of territory in this part of the world, but the Romans are actually able to recover this territory over here in the south part of France, and they are going to be returning the Visigoths north into this part that was their original feuderati or feudus. Sorry, it was their original feudus that they recovered after they agreed. You can see it over here after they agreed to fight for the empire again. So finally, the next Visigoth that is going to be paying, well, actually by this point he's not going to be paying any more services for the Roman Empire, because by this point the Western Roman Empire has ended. So by the rule of Euric the Visigoth, all the Western Empire has ended. Remember that the last emperor is Romulus, which is funny because remember that the founder of Rome was Romulus, and the last emperor of Rome was also Romulus. So by the time that Romulus stops being an emperor and he's defeated, then Euric is going to think or to consider him to have like having the right in name of the Visigoths of ruling all this territory, and thus it starts as a real unit, the kingdom of the Visigoths, and it is all this big territory that is going to be a part of France and a part of Spain, a really important part of France and Spain. But the issues doesn't end here because the issues don't end here because remember that the problem is going to be this one. The power of the empire has always relied on the army, and of course they have other institutions, other more democratic institutions like the Senate, and the emperor has to more or less work with the Senate, but by this point the army has all the power in Rome, and the army is not actually Roman, so there is going to be more issues over here because all these foederati that were welcome to live in the empire in exchange for some military services are going to be rebelling against the empire, and that is going to cause the destruction of the whole empire. And do you remember that we said that the Vandals are going to be, here we have the Vandals, and they are going to be crossing towards Africa? Well, over here we have that problem that, do you remember that when you saw this opera of Dido and Aeneas, do you remember that Dido was the queen of Carthage, and after the Punic Wars, Rome got control of Carthage? Well, the Vandals are going to be invading Carthage, and they are going to be settling their kingdom over here. And of course, that is not going to be graceful for neither of the empires, not for the Eastern Empire, that is going to be this purple arrow over here, and also not for the Western Empire, that is this red arrow over here. So they are both going to launch attempts. They are actually going to unite forces against the Vandals, trying to recover Carthage and trying to recover the northern African territories, and they are going to fail. Actually, even uniting their forces, both the Western and the Eastern Empire, they are still going to fail in recovering the northern part of Africa. And this is going to cause something even more terrible, because then the Vandals are also going to be sacking Rome. So Rome was sacked again, even after Alaric. Alaric was not the only one to enter Rome and sack it. Of course, after the invasion of Alaric, the capital of Rome wasn't the city of Rome anymore. Of the Western Empire, the capital was moved towards the northern part of the Italic Peninsula, obviously in order to be able to protect it a bit better. But the Vandals are going to enter again to Rome, to the city of Rome, and they are going to sack it. So this is going to be like the greatest shame of the empire, because both empires, the Western Empire and the Eastern Empire, are going to launch this attempt to defeat the Vandals, and they are going to fail. And they are not only going to fail, but the Vandals are going to enter Rome and they are going to sack Rome. So finally we have this other big problem. Odoacer, that is going to be another leader of a foederati, in this case of the Ostrogoths, and we are not very sure on what he was. We also know that he was coming from this region over here, coming from the Germanic tribes, but he was also a leader of the foederati. and he rebelled against the last emperor that is Romulus, and he defeated Romulus, and he declared himself as king of Italy.